And here's the meat question. In 2027, the FBI will release tape recordings from when they had bugged Martin Luther King Jr. I've read news articles confirming that on one of these tapes, King can be heard laughing and assisting another male with the rape of a woman. I've also seen those reports. If this is confirmed, how do you think our nation will reckon with a man who has reached the echelon of founding father status in the nation's consciousness?
Mm-hmm. Suddenly, everybody important will understand that we value historical figures for the larger import of what they did rather than even, the seamiest sorts of moral failings they had in other quarters. Everybody will understand. And
rather than King's statue coming down, the other statues will come back up.
Everybody will understand. So no Thomas Jefferson, but King we understand as somebody with flaws, with warts, etc. But we must understand the larger import. In other words, everybody will treat that intelligently. And some people will have more of a problem with it than others. I mean, my guess is that some people will say that this really does force a reckoning with how we celebrate this man. But frankly, the general temper will be to view it with, being able to chew gum and walk at the same time. That's what I think will happen.
Well, it makes me think of a sub-question to the question, what about Me Too? What about the general power of the anti-patriarchy, anti-woman, male ill treatment, exploitation, whatever? Because does it not create a tension? I mean, he is a almost Rushmore-esque kind of figure, King. Martin Luther King Day. That's not going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
So Columbus Day went somewhere. It used to be Columbus Day. There's not Columbus Day anymore, at least not in any place. They changed it. There was fall break here at Brown to Indigenous Peoples Day, and I think that's being done or has been done in many places. And that's a kind of taking down of a statue. It's a kind of the kind of thing that you say is to some degree a performative thing. It's like the quote nigger rock, close quote, controversy at the University of Wisconsin. The latter day lionization, teams changing their name. They won't be the Cleveland Indians anymore. They maybe shouldn't be the Washington Redskins. I'm not trying to revive that debate. What about the Atlanta Braves? What about the Cleveland Indians? Kansas City Chiefs?
Our wisdom is supposed to be that Black people are not subject to any kind of serious judgment. And Martin Luther King was Black. And so we are only subject to serious judgment if we're perceived as hurting other Black people. Hence the way some people talk about us. But other than that, we are terminal innocents. And I think that with King, it's going to be that also includes women and abuse of women. The idea is that a Black person is not to be seriously judged. In this case, smacked on the hand. But, already his serial adultery, has been well known, and that's let pass, which I completely understand in terms of the larger import of what he did in his life. But yeah, in this case, I think that the general decision will be that wisdom dictates that we do not dwell too much upon that thing that he did that night. And he probably did it other times, but he's Black.
Well, that's where I was going. I was going to say, did it not bespeak a way of life to a certain extent? And if we're going to be, not taking history as a prop for our, political imaginations and our senses of self-righteousness and of projecting, but taking history in its full, richness and ambiguity and complexity, and I mean, if we're gonna be serious. In other words, if we're gonna be serious, then who was Martin Luther King Jr. is certainly a question you can't avoid. Who was he? And Uh, I mean, I think about some of these speeches and some of these moments. I mean, they have been put into. I mean, because as you would probably be quick to say, because you're always commenting on the impact of technology. I mean, you know, these images and these sounds of him. You know, the that '63 speech and the you know that speech in the Riverside Church about the Vietnam War. I mean, that speech that he gave just before he was killed in Memphis at that where he has I've been to the mountaintop. Uh, so he brought in his the intonation in the presentation and the way it looks and in the sound of his voice, you know, the being, the human being. So there was sexuality there. There was a I mean, he was an icon. I mean, what was it like to travel with King? What went on in these motel rooms and in the how were these liaisons arranged?
There's all sorts of stuff that people still living probably can amply attest. And I would have a very hard time saying that we need to stop thinking about him or devalue the larger import of his life because of those really shitty things. You know, that it's always been painfully clear that once he was on the road, he, in terms of women, was a sadly ordinary person. Yeah, there are other little stories you hear, stuff that has already selectively been released from the tapes. One of them is how does one put this? There's a recording of him, or there's a transcription of a recording of him in the act, so to speak, where what he's yelling at a certain point is, "I'm not a Negro tonight. I'm not a Negro tonight." That's what.
Oh my Lord!
What did that mean? But frankly,
oh my Lord,
there is a larger import to the man's life than that sort of thing. And so,
okay, now yeah. I got a question for you, John. So here's a question, because you're the literature guy. What would the historical novel that was not meant to be explicitly in every letter an account of his life, but nevertheless explored this dimension of King? Charles Johnson, the novelist Charles Johnson, Middle Passage. Yeah. He has a novel called Dreamer, in which he imagines that there was a double the king, and when the assassination occurred, the real king was not there. It was the double who was assassinated, and the real king then has an imagined life underground because he's believed to be dead, and he, whatever.
That'd be interesting.
But that went into this. That took this material, this side of him, and then used it. Or a playwright who tries to dramatize what? Well, what would you be trying to dramatize? Male-female relations amongst African Americans, and the whole subtext of what's going on with high abortion rates and a lot of single out of wedlock births, and a lot of the kind of I don't know. I stopped because I'm not a novelist. But it seems to me that there's a rich territory here.
The movie Selma already has at least one scene where Martin and Coretta have a conversation about that. But yeah, it'd be interesting if there was some sort of major exploration of the warts and all story of, what King was like beyond when he was making the speeches and doing the work behind the scenes of persuading people in power to save Black America, which he did brilliantly. But you know what? If the person didn't do it the right way, they would catch hell for being traitorous to the Black race or being racist.
Yeah,
so I'm not assuming anybody's going to go there anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will get in trouble if I continue in this vein.